Hey guys, how you doing? I'm Brett Pike, and today we're going to talk about homeschool. Specifically, we're going to talk about teaching children financial literacy. But before we get into that, let me give you a little bit of background about who I am, because the natural question would be, well, who are you to talk about teaching children financial literacy? I went to school to be an educator. I came through the system, got into the education system. I didn't like what I saw. At the time, I lived in an affluent county in Long Island. I had a house and a white picket fence and a big mortgage. And I decided I wanted to do something different with my life. So I started the Classical Learner Homeschooling Company. And since then, I have built out a successful business. So I don't just talk about this stuff. I lived this stuff. I sold my house in Long Island, moved my family across the country to start a homestead, and now we live life out of debt and we grow our own food. So I know a little bit about financial literacy. So with that being said, let's get into it, because the education children are receiving in public school, in which they take one course in 12th grade economics, simply isn't cutting it. So when we educate our children in financial literacy, we want to start very young. And I'm going to break this up into two parts. The first part is, what resources should I as a parent use to teach my child financial literacy? That's a very important question. And the second part is, how do you create a culture in which your child develops a mindset of abundance so they see opportunities where other people don't in the world, and you give them the proper guidance so that they can do real things in the real world, and when they get older, they'll have experience to draw from so that when they want to do financial things, when they want to do business things, they have the confidence to know that they can do that. So financial education starts young, and one of the things I do with my son is I got him books, The Money Ninja and The Investor Ninja, which are a nice introduction to 4-year-old children of what money is, where money comes from, how you can make money, and how you can invest money. Another thing you can do is Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace Jr. Really cool resource. It essentially challenges your child to do chores or things around the house, and your child could earn an allowance, and then it breaks that allowance into money earned, money saved, and then money given, and it prompts your child to do some charitable things, which is something I think is really important for young children. I like children to feel like they're a part of the community and to see the value in that. One of my favorite things I've ever done is my son and I planted 100 lettuce seeds, and then we let them sprout into lettuce, and we went door to door hand delivering lettuce sprouts to our neighbors, and we met a lot of our neighbors, and it was really just a great experience, and it's something that I and my son, I think, will carry with us throughout the rest of our lives. So you do these basic things. You introduce your child to the Money Ninja, the Investor Ninja, Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace Jr., and then as soon as they're ready at age 4 or 5, depending on their math skills, you start with basic games of Monopoly Junior. And we want to establish two concepts with Monopoly Junior. There is something called an asset, and there is something called a liability. And an asset is something that puts money into your pocket. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. So you play Monopoly 101, and when your child is ready, you move to regular Monopoly. And you don't have to go crazy. You have 18 years to educate your children. And I always tell parents, stop trying to do it overnight. Do it for the long haul. One game of Monopoly a month, every 2 months is more than enough. You just want to establish a couple of basic concepts. As you start to do that, you could start to introduce your young child to more complex literature that goes into greater details. Finance 101 for Kids is a good book. And then when your child graduates from Monopoly, you can get the board game Cash Flow for Kids, which was put together by Robert Kiyosaki and the Rich Dad Poor Dad series. And it's really cool because it introduces children to concepts like assets versus liabilities and the concept of the rat race, which is really important for all children to know. Once your child has graduated from Cash Flow for Kids, you could get them the Cash Flow board game for adults, or Cash Flow 101, which is actually designed not just as a game, but as a full financial education in which children not only learn about assets and liabilities, but they actually learn the ins and outs of the language of finance. And after they play the game enough, they should be able to actually read the financial statements put out by companies in the stock market. It's a very comprehensive education. It's great not only for your children, but for you yourself. Now, we just brought up the stock market. Should we teach our children about investing? Absolutely. Should we warn them about the pitfalls of investing? Absolutely. But when people think about investing on the internet space, a lot of times they're talking about Bitcoin or get-rich-quick schemes. And it's fine. You can teach your children about the intricacies of all of these things. But what I'm talking about is teaching your children about how the stock market works and sound long-term investing. And you could teach them about Roth IRAs and 401ks. In fact, we as parents, every single one of us, should at least consider getting, and by the way, I'm not a financial advisor, this is not financial advice, but me, myself, I have UTMA accounts for my children, which are essentially like Roth IRAs for kids or trust accounts for kids. It's a good idea because you stock away a little bit of money into it, and over time, by the time they're 18, you might actually have a pretty big nest egg that they can use to start a business or go to college if that's what they want to do. And we'll talk a little bit about what I'm referring to here, but it's just a wise thing for parents to do. So we absolutely want to introduce our children to investing in the stock market. And one way to do that is the book, How to Buy Stocks for Kids. And you can read it yourself, or How to Teach Kids to Buy Stocks, I should say. And you could read the book yourself, or you could have them do it, but it introduces them to all of the intricacies of investing in the stock market. And if you want a fun activity, they can invest with fake money in the TD Bank Wow Zone. And they could actually get practice investing in the real stock market with fake money to see how they would do. A great activity, a great learning experience, and something we as parents should all consider for our children. Now, as your children get into the high school years, I want them to read a few books. And the first book, it's less sexy, and people say, oh, that's not as fun. I don't care. The first books they should read in terms of financial literacy are Dave Ramsey, because he talks about not getting into debt, not keeping up with the Joneses, and I think that's a very important message. I mentioned at the beginning of this, I own land, a home, a homestead without debt. One of the biggest pitfalls young people fall into is they think they have to get the big house or have the nice car or do all of these things, and by the time they look up, they have $100,000 in college loans, they have a big mortgage, they have 2 car payments, and they're in so much debt that they've almost become this modern version of indentured servants, and that is not what we want for our children. So have them read Dave Ramsey. Then they could read the funner books, the more exciting books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which I talked about a little bit, assets versus liabilities, but it also talks about the difference in lifestyles and how the way you structure your life matters. So if you're an employee for a corporation, well, you're going to work from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and no matter how hard you work, there's only really so much room for growth, and you're kind of stuck and reliant on the corporate boss. Then it teaches you how you could own a business, and it could be the type of business where you are the business. You have to do everything. Maybe you're a masseuse and you go from house to house giving people massages, and that's your business. You own an S Corp, and it's a great way to structure your life because you have the flexibility of being your own boss, but you're also extremely busy. Then there are other types of business systems, where you're the boss and you have employees, and those employees follow systems that you put together, and those systems generate money for you. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple of minutes, but it's a way of structuring your life that gives you even more freedom. And then, of course, the book goes into the different forms of investing, which are very important. We talked about the stock market, But for anyone that started a business, this is my business right now. I'm promoting my business by making this video. I want you to join my homeschool community. And by the way, you won't regret it. Shameless sales pitch, but this is my business, and you could start a business and you invest money back into it and grow it. And that's an investment in yourself, in your financial future. And in my opinion, it's the best form of investing. And then there's other forms as well, like real estate and things of that nature, which I think all children should understand, and it could be something they want to get into when they're older. In fact, I'll probably do a follow-up video on this about how to give your child an education in just terms of real estate, because I've done consultations for families for years, and I've actually set 15-year-olds on a path to owning real estate when they're 20, 21 years old, because that's what them and their parents told me they wanted to do, and it's just a really cool thing. So have your children read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, then have them read Think and Grow Rich, which is all about mindset development, and then have them read The 4-Hour Work Week, which is all about setting up business systems so that your business could operate, but you don't have to do all of the little things on the day-to-day that takes up all of your time. Financial literacy should ultimately be designed to give your children the option of freedom. And if your children don't understand how they could structure their lives in a way where they can do whatever they want to do, then they haven't received a proper financial education. So those are the resources I recommend in giving your child a financial education. But as I said at the beginning, that's only the first half of the equation. And I think it's actually the less important half. The more important half is mindset development. And that starts at a very young age. In fact, what I tell members of my homeschool community is we essentially apply the rule of semesters. I used to call it the rule of 6, but I just don't like that because it's like 6, 6, 6, 6, and I don't like the feeling, the vibration of that. So the rule of semesters. There's two school semesters a year, and once every school semester, your children should do something entrepreneurial. Now, what does that look like? For a 5-year-old, that looks like a lemonade stand. For a 6-year-old, that looks like a bake sale. For a 7-year-old, that looks like making ice cream and selling it. For an 8-year-old, that looks like making slime and selling it. For a 9-year-old, that looks like making jewelry and selling it. For a 10-year-old, that looks like starting a photography business. Now, what do I mean by that? Whatever our children do entrepreneurial, it should be within the context of what they want to do. And I can't stress how important that is. Whatever your children do in the entrepreneurial space, it should be in the context of what they want to do. You follow their interest, because the number one objective is developing mindset. And if you force it, it will actually go the opposite way. So let's say, just as a simple example, you have a child who is very artsy. One of the things you could do, they've taken classes on painting and sketching, and they're very crafty. You can go to the Five and Below store, pick up a pair of white sandals or shoes for $5, get them paint, and then guide them, challenge them to design their own shoe. And then once they design their own shoes, you can start showing them different avenues potentially that they could sell their shoes. You don't have to force it, let it come natural. But you say, there's this site Etsy, and I bet you could put your shoes on there. There's the Facebook Marketplace. You could set up a corner store where you basically just set up a towel on the corner or at the beach and sell your shoes there. You can approach a local farmer's market and ask them if you could get a table, and then maybe you'll design 25 pairs of shoes and we'll get a table for a day. It costs $50 to get a table. But you are developing a mindset in your child, and you are giving them a childhood filled with experiences. And the best part is, as you start to do this and it's naturally motivating, your child's education takes a life of its own. It takes its own direction, because that child who starts designing those shoes and they start to have some success. Well, now you teach them how to do a sales pitch, and maybe they can get their shoes into a local antique store, a local mom and pop store who will sell their shoes. Or you teach them about web design because they want to build a website to show off their shoes. Or maybe they want to do some social media marketing, so you teach them how to build an Instagram page. You have them read books like Contagious on social media marketing. Oh, another book your children should read that I really like for financial literacy is How to Win Friends and Influence People, or How to Make Friends and Influence People is a really good book. So you have them read books on social media marketing. You have them build an Instagram page. Maybe they take courses in videography so they could start making cool 1-minute videos to promote their shoes. But as they do that, they're learning web design, they're learning marketing, they're learning videography. You're taking their interest, you're following that interest, and maybe one skill to get them entrepreneurial experience, and then you continue to follow their interest to develop even more skills that could be generalized to whatever they want to do later on. It's not about them selling shoes, it's about the mindset development, the experience that they get, and the skills they develop, the ancillary skills that, you learn graphic design because you're building a website. Well, you could become a graphic designer later on, or who knows? There's so many different things you can do with the skill of graphic design. So we follow their interest. We use their interest to develop skills. We use the skills to get them entrepreneurial experience and to develop an entrepreneurial mindset. This is so important. And then once they have that, we follow their interest, we develop more skills, and we get them more entrepreneurial experience. And then when you combine that with the financial education we discussed from age 4, you are talking about an 18-year-old who is very capable, and they are very financially literate, not only in theory, but with experience. You are talking about an 18-year-old who is not only going to be, or you are talking about an 18-year-old who will not only not be reliant on the government, they will not be reliant on corporations, and they will not be reliant on even you as their parent. And there is something that is extremely powerful about that. For anyone interested in what I do, I am the founder of Classical Learner. It is a homeschooling company. We have an amazing, thriving homeschool community of homeschool mothers and fathers who come together and bounce ideas off of one another. And I build out original curriculum, original science curriculum, STEM curriculum, all types of really good stuff. A lot of crafts projects that guide children toward getting the entrepreneurial experience we talked about today. I put together original courses on critical thinking and the logical fallacies, the Bill of Rights and American Revolution, things of that nature. And for anyone that joins Homeschools Connected, they get access to literally all of the resources I put out. So it's a really amazing thing. I don't think education should be something that's expensive, so I plan to bring it to the masses. And it's been our first year, and we've been blown away with the reception we've gotten. So anyone interested, check out classicallearner.com, www.classicallearner.com, Homeschools Connected, and use the discount code FREEDOM. So, all right, guys, this has been a great talk. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you next time.